What's up, guys? Tim Little. Welcome back to TacticalBassin. Today's video, we are talking about spring topwater, covering the different types of topwaters, the best baits for this transition into summer. Let's go. You guys know how much we love to throw topwater. Outside of the whole swim bait bite, you know, that real big jig bite, or seeing a big old sub come up and eat a glide bait, visually seeing a bass come out of the water to eat a topwater, like a frog or a wake bait or anything like that, the visual explosion is something that will keep you hooked for years and years to come. It is one of my favorite ways to catch them, definitely my favorite ways to get bit. And now that we're into spring, it's time to start thinking about topwaters. Should I be throwing a big wake bait? Should I be throwing a frog? Should I be downsizing? Should I be throwing a double buzz bait or a single bladed buzz bait? There's all these different topwater baits on the market, and not all of them apply right now. They will as we get farther and farther along into that spring to summer transition. But today I'm going to kind of simplify it for you guys. These are my boat topwater boxes, okay? All sorts of baits. Here's my boat frog box, right? You don't need all these. There's a time and a place for all these, but right now you don't need all those. So today's video gonna start get that mental juices flowing about topwater and try and limit the baits for you guys, simplify it for you. That way you have success and build that confidence into prime topwater season, that summertime into fall. So where to get started? So what do I got? I got frogs, I got BFS, wake baits, poppers, buzz baits, universal like walking bait. So I got about 5 or 6 different categories, and I shrunk them down because each of these categories can be huge, especially when you're talking about walking baits. There's probably 100 different baits on the market. So let's start there. That's probably the most universal, most well-known style of bait in the topwater category, your walking baits, like your Zara spooks, okay? We will go there. I'm gonna limit it. I have 4 baits for you. 4 baits in that walking bait category. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with a walker, it's real subtle rod twitches, and this bait's going ch, 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 ch. It's really important. Let's start there. It's really important this time of the year not to get too fast with your topwaters. So a recent video, I talked about my top 5 baits for May, and I actually had a topwater in there, a couple different topwaters, and I talked about the speed at which the bait is coming from the end of your cast to you, the amount of water that you're covering, right? You know, let's talk about a buzzbait or a Whopper Plopper. You cast this thing out, you can burn this thing back to the boat, but it's coming at you really, really quickly. I tend to stay away, or at least shy away, from this style of bait being fished very quickly as we transition into or from colder water. These fish have moved up, they're doing their spawn, they're probably in all 3 phases, pre-spawn, spawn, and post-spawn. They are willing to chase, but not that fast, not that quickly, right? So I like to limit my baits this time of the year, or stay away from real fast moving topwaters. Make sense? So the walking bait is nice because you can fire it out there, twitch, twitch, twitch. This bait's just going side to side to side to side. It's not covering a lot of distance to you. 2 things. These fish, if they're in any of the 3 stages, pre-spawn, spawn, or spawn, even if they're on spawn, maybe they're on a bed and you can't even see it, but this bait walking over their head, they're gonna get ticked off at it and they're gonna eat it. But having a side to side walking bait is a must. And like I said, it's probably the biggest style or the most common style in the entire top water genre technique. Okay, so right off the bat, I have 4 for you. This guy, since I have it tied on, this is the Evergreen Shower Blows. Okay, that's actually the 105 size. It comes in multiple sizes, 77, 105, I think there's a 125 and an even larger one, and that has to do with how big they are. This time of the year as well, I'm not going super big baits. I'm not going super aggressive baits. So I kind of slim them down a little bit, shorten them down. It just kind of goes with how the fishing has been over the last couple of years for myself. A lot more fishing pressure, a lot more boats, lots of more fishermen on the water. So just downsizing the bait a little bit has helped me tremendously. So that 105 size has been really key, a little smaller. And we'll talk about that here in some other baits as well. But that Shower Blows is a must, okay? That's the 105. Couple other baits in that walking category is going to be the River to Sea Rover, the Reaction Innovations Vixen. Those of you guys that know that these have not been around for a long time. They're finally back on the market, and they went for some astronomical prices online on eBay. Reaction Innovations has done some special colorways, some special color runs lately, but the Vixen, for any top water fisherman, this is a must. It's been a staple of mine for years. And what sets it apart from these others, the last one I'm gonna talk about is the Tackle Kick Knocker. They all kind of have the same similar shape, but understand they sound different, and that's what makes them special. The Vixen, the Tackle. I don't know if those are. And then the Rover. Different pitches. And what I found, I typically start out with that Rover. I'll show you guys the Shower Blows real quick. Or the Shower Blows, depending on where I'm fishing. Hear the difference? And then I will go from there. The next up is gonna be the Vixen. It's more of a higher pitch sound. And then last but not least, I'll go with that Tackle Kick Knocker. But one of, or a few of these different baits are key this time of the year. Again, you're not covering a lot of water to and from, just side to side, right? Color-wise, I like to go with your shad, gizzard shad, threadfin shad, ghost minnows, bait fish colors, or your bones, okay? Those are basically the 3 colors I throw. Chrome-ish, bait fish-ish, and then bone. Make sense? Trying to simplify it for you guys. All right, so we have the walking side-to-side top waters out of the way. Next, let's talk about the Whopper Plopper. This is one of the most fun baits that you can tie on for any level of an experienced angler. It doesn't matter if it's a 6-year-old throwing a spinning rod or an experienced tournament pro, the Whopper Plopper is a must. It's a topwater bait, has a prop on the back. As you reel it, the back plop, 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 plop. Sounds like an outboard motor going through the water. And the explosions on this bait are life-changing. You're gonna remember the first time you had an explosion on one of these baits. They just eat it, and they eat it hard, and they eat it fast. But the Whopper Plopper is a very easy bait to throw, but what's cool about it, and why I like to throw it over a buzzbait this time of the year, I don't even know if you guys can see this or not, but it floats. It's really important, especially this time of the year, to have a bait that you can pause or pop when you get near that isolated piece of cover. If these fish are moving shallow, or maybe they're off the first little ledge or break, they're moving out to their summer haunts, they're in that post-spawn stage, and there's a lay down, you wanna be able to bring this bait right next to it and then pause it. If you're throwing a traditional buzzbait, it's gonna sink. So there's a time and a place to throw that Whopper Plopper over a buzzbait, and right now is that time. I love throwing a Whopper Plopper. I like throwing, comes in several different sizes. I like throwing, this is the 110 size. Okay, if I could have one size out of all 4 or 5 sizes they make, the 110, so a little bit fatter body, shorter, big spots eat it, big smallmouth eat it, and big largemouth eat it. As we get into the summer months, your late Junes, Julys, August, I will actually upsize to the 130 size and even the larger size if I'm really trying to get those larger bites. I'm trying to throw something a little different sound-wise and size-wise than everybody else on the water. So that 110 size is great. Now, I got baits laying all over here for you guys. I don't want to miss anything. Let's talk about this bait real quick because it kind of, well, let's talk about this one. This bait, this is the Savage Gear Prop Walker 100. Okay. Looks a lot like, size-wise, the Shower Blows 105. 100, 105 size. So a little bit smaller. This is a great bait if you're walking it side to side, just like I talked about in that category. But what sets this bait apart is it has these little fins. I don't even know what they're made out of. They're flexible. You pop them off. So now you can have a straight retrieve bait, just like the Whopper Plopper. Now you can rip it. You can slow roll it, plop, 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 and it's gonna float. Again, it's not going to sink like the buzzbait, okay? So that's one of those baits that's an in-betweener for me. Caught some fish on it, real stout hooks, but it's kind of that best of both worlds. You can put those fins in and walk it like a traditional walking bait. You can pop those fins out, and now you have a bait that kind of fishes like or in that same kind of straight retrieve Whopper Plopper category. All right. Since we're talking about straight retrieve baits, then we'll get into some poppers and some frogs and all that good stuff. Let's talk about this guy right here. This was a new bait to me, a new bait to the market, last year? This is the ZMan Hellraiser. And looking at it in the package, you're like, man, what the heck is that? It's got kind of the weight system on the back. It's a long, slender profile. Got a big cup face. The line tie is right here. But this thing moves a ton of water. Where this fits for me this time of the year is those guys that are chasing open water spotted bass. If you're on a herring lake or a lake where you're out offshore, main lake points, and they're blowing up on bait, this is a bait that has some weight to it. You can get it out there, you can move it quick, and those spots just go crazy for this thing, okay? That's another straight retrieve bait that has an action and a sound that a lot of fish haven't seen. And that feeds right into buzzbaits. So buzzbaits do have a time and a place this time of the year for me. I'm not throwing the big, double buzzes with the big blades on them. I'm typically throwing something a little more compact. In that recent video, I talked about the shad spawn, those fish in the low light hours, your late evenings, early mornings through the night. Those shad get up on the hard pieces of the point or rock walls or jetty walls or riprap, and they're doing their spawn. We have the shad spawn after the bass spawn, and those bass just come up and annihilate those fish. So a buzzbait is a great bait to get up there shallow and cover some water. Again, you're not moving too quick. That guy right there, that's the mega bass. That's the Jamaica boa. Just like every mega bass, you get super high-end paint jobs, quality, and sound. That blade has a clacker on it. It is loud, okay? So if I'm going buzzbait, I'm targeting grass lines or I'm targeting up shallow shad spawn. That guy right there, this guy right here, sometimes I will change out the swim bait itself. That is the big bite bait Suicide Buzz. Suicide Buzz comes with the buzzbait head and the swim baits for it. You could also put a Zoom horny toad on there, whatever trailer you want. I typically like the toad style or a swim bait style. But again, the downside to the buzzbait right now is you have to fish them just fast enough to keep them up from sinking. So if you put like a toad on there, a little bit bigger profile trailer, that helps keep that bait lifted and you can go slower with it. Last but not least, this guy right here, this is a bait by G-Rat. This can I cast last year. It's also kind of the best of both worlds. You got that buzzbait blade on it, lots of sound, commotion, and then you have the Whopper Plopper style tail on the back. So again, it's just like that Savage gear. It's kind of plays in both types of topwaters, your buzzbaits and your Whopper Ploppers. But again, going with real natural colors, smaller profiles, and I'm looking to catch those fish that are targeting bait fish up shallow. Probably my #1 topwater bait this time of the year. As we transition from that cold water, the fish are less active. As we get into kind of that more active water temps and air temps, is going to be some kind of popper. The popper is a finesse topwater. You can throw it on spinning tackle if you'd like. If you're not too amped to throw it on bait casters, or you don't have that many rods, or maybe you don't even own a bait caster, this is a bait that you can throw on a spinning rod. Throwing these baits all over. But what sets these baits apart, obviously they're a lot smaller, they're more subtle. I think of them as a finesse topwater, and that kind of goes hand in hand with this time of the year. The fish are just getting warm, they're getting acclimated, they're coming up shallow. Some of them could be a little bit skittish, you know, they haven't been up shallow for long. So this isn't a giant profile in the water, but big ones still eat it. So we have the Mega Bass, that's the Pop Max, and we have the Shimano World Pop that has the flash boost in there. You guys can see that suspended piece of metal in there that adds kind of that secondary action. When you bloop, bloop, and just let it sit, bloop, that's just sitting there, and those fish are staring at that, thinking that's a real easy meal. So the popper, when I'm looking across the shoreline, I can see a lay down here, I can see a shade line there, I can see a dock piling here. I'm seeing those isolated pieces of cover that I think are going to hold fish. The same cast that you'd make with a shaky head or a weightless Senko, something like that, now you make it with a popper. Again, it's not overly intrusive, it's not too big, too loud. You can fish it super slow, bloop, let it sit. You can walk it, bloop, 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 let it sit. The fish just come unglued because that thing is just sitting there above their head and they don't know what to do with it. Super subtle. Again, it plays in that whole shad spawn deal. It plays into your deeper brush piles, you know, tree tops coming up to the surface in deeper water, plays in that realm as well. But a popper, to me, is a must. And out of the categories, I got these two for you, the Pop Max and the World Pop. Those are my two favorite. Again, just trying to simplify it. I have a lot more poppers in my box. You know, the Ricos, the all sorts of different poppers. But if you're just getting into topwater, or you're just trying to get into topwater for the season, I'm trying to limit it for you. Okay, so we talked about poppers. Next, let's talk about frogs. And then I have two other categories for you. So frogs, you know, this could be its own frog video, right? I mean, I love to throw frogs. All those frogs have different actions, different kicks, all sorts of different stuff, right? So as far as frogs, I'm gonna try and simplify it for you. If you are a topwater fisherman that has water's coming up, now the shoreline's starting to get flooded a little bit, You know, water's been down maybe. Now you get some late spring, early spring, middle spring, whatever time of spring it is. Storms, water's coming up. You have your grass starting to grow. You just got stuff in the water. A frog is about as weedless and about as power fishing as you can get. I'm talking 65 pounds straight braid, throwing it in the thickest flooded, deepest cover and jacking 5, 6, 7, 10 pounders out of that stuff. It is so much fun. It's putting your gear to the test, to the max. It's putting your biceps and your forearms to the max, to the test. But a frog can be a do-all power fishing technique up shallow in the stuff. But it also can be an offshore deal. So maybe you're in a post-spawn situation, you got some offshore grass lines. This guy right here, this is the Bullywah 2. You can see that frog right there has a real nice keel to it. This is a frog that you could fish really in the same places you could fish the walking bait. And you can get this frog walking, and that frog just going side to side. It's quiet. You know, you can put some rattles in it if you want, maybe some jig rattles. We'll probably shoot a more in-depth frog video here in the near future. But, you know, there's some things you can do to make your frog look and sound different, walk different. But for this video, just a walking frog. I picked this one right here. This is a Bullywah 2. That's just a frog that Matt and I have caught hundreds of bass on. This one's just totally just trashed. Eyes and all the teeth marks in it. But you can fish it in both places, both scenarios. Super universal. Okay, so that's a walking frog. Another good one right here, snag proof. That's Bobby's Perfect Frog. That's a great frog. Universal. It's got less of a keel on it, so this one's going to be better in thicker grass. When you start getting, you know, that real stout keel, the frog will tend to roll if it's sitting up on the mat. So this is your open water sparse grass frog. This is a frog you can throw on the mat. And then your poppin' frog. You need one of each for the different scenarios. This is the Jackal Gavacho, very realistic pattern looking. I mean, it's a poppin' frog. It's got a cupped face, so you can fish it where you'd fish that popper. But if it's you need something a little bit more weedless, or you want to throw a little bit more stout of line, straight braid, that guy right there. But it has a real natural color. That's a real natural colorway to it. I love this kind of for me. It mimics like a bait fish, like a bluegill or something up shallow, popping little bait. But that poppin' frog right there is a must. So get yourself a walking frog, a grass frog or a mat frog, and then a poppin' frog, and you guys will be well on your way to having a box like that, boat frog. Okay, now with that said, I got some specialty frogs for you. These come into play just like the Whopper Plopper and just like the Buzzbait. Okay, got your Spro. This is the flapping frog. It's I don't know what it's made out of. It's super resilient, super stretchy, but it's a kicking frog. So in the past, we've thrown horny toads and toad style baits that, just like the Buzzbait, when you stopped reeling, they would sink. This guy right here floats. Okay, so kicking frog, throw it out there. Just those little feet are kicking. Just make it all little subtle disturbances. Kind of mimics a bait fish. This is the Teckle. That's the Sprinker. It's your weedless Whopper Plopper. It's a frog body with that Whopper Plopper style kick sound to it. We got this guy right here. This is another one from Spro. It's a little different cast and retrieve frog. It's got the metal clanking, smaller. Those are Colorado blade. Kind of, in my mind, it's made to mimic like little bait fish. But anyways, that guy is an easy bait to throw. So if you're new to throwing a frog and you don't know how to walk a frog, either go with the popper, you fish it just the poppin' frog, you fish it just like a popper, or one of these cast and retrieve style frogs. Okay? Again, trying to simplify it for you. And then last but not least is this guy right here. This is the little Jackal Kyara. This is a smaller frog. This is a frog you can throw on a spinning rod. It's a frog that will get bit when the others won't. It's downsized. It's more of your finesse frog. You still throw straight braid, but it's just a smaller profile. And it's something that a lot of fish haven't seen. And Matt and I have had a lot of success in the last few years throwing that guy right there. So that is frogs in a nutshell. Whew, we're getting through it, guys. Let's talk bait finesse real quick. I know that you guys have heard Matt and I talk about BFS or bait finesse system, you know, the last year or so, but it is a big deal and it is so much fun. I can take a little, you guys remember that 105 size shower blows? Here's a little itty bitty 77 size. Little tiny shower blows. Here it is compared to a popper, right? But it's a walking bait. And not only is it a tiny walking bait, I can throw it like 50 yards. Smaller presentation, smaller braids, smaller everything. It's on a bait caster. So if you want to be different, you want to throw a downsized bait, BFS is where it's at. Again, I'm throwing, you can throw 6, 8, 10 pound braid, but I'm putting a mono leader on it. I actually have a 10 pound mono leader. So I still have a 10 pound leader on here, but I'm able to send these little baits a long ways, okay? So BFS, if you are looking to get into it, it is so much fun, especially for topwater. So that's that little 77 shower blows. I have 2 other baits for you. This is the Zip and Ziggy by Owner. Little tiny walking bait. This is the PQ PQ by Jackal. It's a wacky rigged hard bait that you hit on slack line, you shake it on slack line, and this bait just vibrates on the surface, and puts off a shimmy that these fish haven't seen, and they just come unglued for it. So bait finesse topwater real quick, and then to go the completely opposite direction. If you're a big baiter and you're looking to get yourself a big top water bite, go with some kind of wake bait. This is a tactical wake that Matt and I designed several years ago. It came to market last year, but it's a very special bait. It's a bait that is super universal. It's a bait that is super easy to fish. Throw it out there, just slow reel it, clack, clack, clack. It's got that clacker, real subtle. So real subtle tail action. So you can just do the swim back. It's clacking, clack, clack, clack. You can walk it, get this thing going side to side, or you can swim it. You can crank it down and get just subsurface and get that real nice V on the surface. But a wake bait just draws bigger bites when these big fish are up in that pre-spawn, spawn, post-spawn kind of situation where they're up shallow. You're making the same target cast to those isolated pieces of cover, but when you're trying to target a large fish, giving them a large meal is the best way to target those fish. Now, caught plenty of 12-inch bass eating a big wake bait like this. This is like a 8-inch bait, but it doesn't limit the small bites, but it targets those larger bites, larger fish. So guys, I think I'm gonna wrap it up there. Again, hopefully this simplified it for you. Hopefully you do have boxes like this, but trying to save you some money and simplify it. Really kind of look at those baits in those categories, the different categories and how they play into your fishery. You know, are you on a grass fishery? Are you on a shad fishery? Are the fish in pre-spawn or post-spawn? All those things come into play. Do you need to be working that bait fast or slow? Do I need it to sink or float? So all those different little tweaks come into play, especially right now as we transition into warmer weather, warmer water, and those fish are getting active. Now is the time to be thinking about throwing topwater. Fish haven't seen topwater realistically all the way since last fall. You could be the first guy on your entire lake throwing a topwater. You don't think that's gonna come into play or that's gonna be fun? Guys, I hope this video helps. Hopefully it gave you some confidence, or at least simplified the different techniques, the different baits in the categories for topwater. It's a huge category, but hopefully that simplified it a little bit for you. Down below in the video description, we'll link our favorite baits, the different styles of baits, and the colors, and we'll simplify that as much as possible for you. And then down below in the comments section, we'll try to answer any of your comments for you, any of your questions. So if you have any questions, please leave those down below. But I challenge you guys, get yourself one or a few of these different topwater baits, head to your favorite pond or lake and give these baits a try. You guys will have success, and once you catch your first topwater fish, you get that big explosion, I promise you guys, you will be hooked for a very, very long time. As always, guys, thank you for watching. We appreciate the support. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys on the next video.